one of the things that undermines our ability to exploit this resource is on the cost curve. You can see, I think someone was saying, it's about 3 times the cost of gray hydrogen. The costs are prohibitive, but with investments in technology and innovation, the cost curve will come down. And I think as the initial stages, the industrialized developed countries of the North, they are prepared to pay that price premium because they've made their intentions known with regards to net zero path, the nationally determined contribution. So there's a flurry of interest from developed countries, and they are prepared to pay that premium. And I think we must exploit that. And exploitation in this instance, not in a negative sense, but mutually reinforcing, meeting the desires of the industrialized North, exploiting our resource, investing that back into research and innovation, and driving down the cost, and over a period of time, then the poor can benefit from this resource. So that it's not a conversation that is of the elite and the enlightened, but there's significant traction that is realized by everyone. And then there's issues around the reconfiguration of the energy ecosystem, really on the distribution side. I think that there's these Ds that requires attention. The first one is decarbonization, so it's documented, if you like, what dirty fuels does, the issues of climate change is devastating the poor, disproportionately affected, the rich can protect themselves, adaptation, mitigation can make these investments, but the poor are left to their devices. So it's important that we take that into consideration. Then there's a democratization of this, a democratization dimension in this conversation. So the issues around wheeling, so that there's a geographic dispersion of these opportunities. We are able to move the electrons to the point of use or need, so that, if you like, there has to be an equitable distribution of the benefits across the country. The geography, I mean, and the geography really extends just beyond the South African borders. We are decentralizing, so essentially we are getting to a point of distributed grids that can also benefit, I mean, outside just supporting the green hydrogen agenda, but it can meet the energy needs of local communities. And of course, the major constraint is transmission. Once there's the distributed generation, you are undermining that strain. And then there's digitization, the modernization of this infrastructure. I think it will be important in that conversation. So I'm saying that in the African context, those Ds are important, that we carry them through in the conversation as we address this. And then there has to be, I want to argue, wall-to-wall regional cooperation. We are starting with Namibia. The conversation will happen with Angola. You are addressing the issues of financing, but more importantly from here is the issues of regulations and standards. I think it must be almost, we must universalize it across the region so that we are not pitted against each other. A common appreciation of what this potential is, and the value of science, I think, will come into the mix. The rest I've spoken about them. And then we must address the structural constraints. I've spoken about water, and then the issues around what Sasol is doing, pioneers on Fischer-Tropsch technology. So the point I'm making is that some of the advantages that we have is that the technology already exists. We are resolving what the energy source is. And I think on this score, we are doing exceptionally well. But I think it's important that we keep on reminding ourselves on those structural competitiveness. So these are the advantages that we have. Outside the locational advantage, if you had to do any radiation atlas, the Northern Cape is a renewable energy complex of the country. The Cape provinces, great wind speeds, but there's other things that we have done over a period of time. And then we have made the point, we have approved the country's investment strategy. We are elevating what we call frontiers. These are industries that will shape the kind of economy that we envisage going into the future. And one of those is green hydrogen. So the conversation is consistent with our interpretation of what the future holds and the complex of the South African economy. And then in conclusion, I think we have to address those policy levers. So the point I'm making is that the state must not be retrenched. The state must be at the forefront, determine both the direction and velocity of this investment, manufacture opportunities to borrow from what the special envoy has said, and then make it possible for private sector to unleash its potential. The issue around the export market, I've spoken about the, if you like, the prohibitive cost element. I think the industrialized nodes will be prepared to pay that premium. There's a parallel lane domestic market. I think there's a healthy market, the issue of green steel, green cement. We anticipate that there will be carbon border adjustment mechanism that can undermine our potential to access the lucrative market of the industrialized nodes. So really the point I'm making is that it is important that we have this appreciation. So in this conversation, we must factor those in as we unleash the potential. And I really want to take the opportunity to invite the President, who has been the principal sponsor of this effort that we are making. I mean, he has taken the lead, and that's why part of these efforts are concentrated in the Presidency so that he's got direct sight and, if you like, appreciation of what is happening. And he has expressed over time the need for us to rethink and reimagine a South African economy, and part of the energy reconstruction and recovery plan was to make sure that we take advantage of the potential of a reconfigured, if you like, economic complex in the country, and green hydrogen is one of those. So I want to take the opportunity to invite the President, who's joining us virtually, to guide us on South Africa's view on how we are going to take this potential forward, working with private sector. Like I said, private sector is indispensable to this conversation, and we are confident that working together across the administrative and political boundaries, across our own sovereign and narrow interest, Namibia and Angola, I think there's huge potential. So Program Director, I know I was meant to do that. Okay, I'm not ahead of myself. So the President will speak to us. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you.
Program Director, Minister Ramokgopa, Premier Winde, ministers from here at home and a number of other countries in our sub-region. It gives me great pleasure to be in your presence and to address you in this, the second South African Green Hydrogen Summit. I am sorry that I'm unable to be there in person. It isn't has much to do with your summit competing with the Springboks victory last night, but I am where I am, and I'm sorry about that. I've spent the better part of the morning trying to speak to President Macron just to commiserate, but we have not been able to talk, and we talk often about the highs and the lows of both of our countries, and I'm sure that we will be able to talk later. But South Africans are reveling in this incredible success that our boys have achieved in Paris. Many of them felt that we should declare today as a public holiday, and I declined, and I said we will only consider that when they win the final, at which I will personally be present. This is an extremely important summit for our country and our people. South Africa aims to position itself as a globally competitive player in this dynamic and growing industry. The South African investment strategy, which was approved by our cabinet earlier this year, lists green hydrogen as one of the big frontier strategic sectors that is expected to attract foreign and domestic direct investment. The hydrogen economy has a prominent role to play in our country's just energy transition, providing employment and support to vulnerable workers, communities, and small businesses, and indeed also giving a great impetus to the growth of our medium and big businesses. It has been estimated that the hydrogen economy has the potential to add 3.6% to our gross domestic product by 2050 and approximately create, at the minimum, 370,000 jobs. Now, being South Africa, where jobs are scarce and our unemployment is significantly high, this would be no mean feat. In fact, it would be a major boost to lowering our unemployment levels. We must act with purpose to harness the potential of the green hydrogen economy. Some 64 countries, accounting for 89% of global emissions, have announced net zero targets by 2050. It is anticipated that global green hydrogen demand will increase sevenfold by 2050. And I'm sure that some of these statistics have already been put forward to all of you by Premier Winde and by Dr. Ramokgopa, the Minister of Electricity. For the world to limit global warming to less than 1.5 degrees Celsius, green hydrogen will need to constitute 10 to 20% of the global energy mix. South Africa has committed to ambitious emission reduction targets. Our own estimates indicate that green hydrogen has the potential to remove 10 to 15% of our domestic emissions and contribute to our nation's long-term energy security. The inaugural South African Green Hydrogen Summit last year focused on scaling up regional cooperation around green hydrogen. This is being done through the African Green Hydrogen Alliance, which includes a number of countries on our continent, they being Egypt, Kenya, Mauritania, Morocco, Namibia, Ethiopia, Angola, and South Africa. Last week, I visited Namibia during our Binational Commission summit with President Hage Geingob, and we spent a considerable amount of time talking about this green hydrogen endowment that both our countries now have. We agreed that we would continue to play a key and a leading role in ensuring that this endowment leads to the growth of our two economies, and indeed together with all the other countries that I've mentioned. The Alliance aims to harness Africa's potential in developing green hydrogen industries. It aims to make joint calls for technical support, funding, and market access to international public and private sector partners. This is precisely what we spent a considerable amount of time talking about. The inaugural summit laid strong policy foundation. This year's summit has a dedicated project focus, providing an opportunity to demonstrate the degree to which products have matured and advanced. This is also an opportunity to demonstrate technological development and advancements in the green hydrogen space. Close cooperation between public, private, and financial partners will be key to unlocking Africa's green hydrogen potential. This will enable mass-scale domestic and international demand for green hydrogen and increase cooperation on green hydrogen production, storage, and distribution infrastructure. If investment is significantly scaled up, and we expect it to be, green hydrogen can deliver the equivalent of more than 1/3 of Africa's current energy consumption and increase our collective GDP, improve our clean energy supply, and empower our communities through access to energy. Proper planning, regulatory and incentive schemes are critical to mobilize private sector investment. And this is precisely what we in the public sector are focusing attention on to make the entry and the investment of the private sector to be much more conducive. And it is also in this regard that we are willing, ready, and prepared to listen to what the private sector has to say to us in the form of suggestions, in the form of ideas, so that we are well synchronized in our thinking together as the public and the private sector. Of course, not forgetting the views of the communities surrounding whatever installations that will be put up. South Africa has deep capital markets with world-class conditions for generating renewable energy through solar and wind, which are key drivers to the production of green hydrogen. Funding green hydrogen projects will require innovative, creative, and new financing structures sourced from multiple stakeholders. If there ever was a time for innovation of packaging investment instruments to enable us to solve the challenge of lack of capital. And may I add, I'm often told that capital is not the problem. The problem is just being able to package the instruments through which investors can invest, and also to package projects properly. And once the two are matched, I've often been told that then we get to dance. In June 2023, South Africa concluded a heads of agreement with the intention to launch the South Africa H2 Fund. This is an innovative blended finance fund that will facilitate the development of a green hydrogen sector and circular economy in South Africa. South Africa H2 aims to secure $1 billion in funding raised directly in South Africa or via indirect channels. The fund is a partnership of private and public enterprises, both sourced locally and globally. And we're finding tremendous interest in this fund. Since the last summit, we have made advances towards building the green hydrogen industry in our country. And these include a joint declaration of intent with the German government focusing on market access, offtake, opportunities, and value additive benefits in the production of green steel and green fertilizer. South Africa has also signed a memorandum of understanding with the Netherlands as an off-taker for green hydrogen derivative products. It is encouraging to note that a memorandum of cooperation will be signed at this conference by 3 multinationals in the green hydrogen mobility space, namely Sasol, Anglo American, and BMW. This demonstrates forward movement and great progress. Sasol will serve as a supplier to Anglo American and BMW as part of their focus on commercial and passenger fleet transformation. These are important initiatives within the context of carbon border adjustment mechanisms. As I conclude, allow me to thank all the partners and the sponsors that have made this summit possible. A special mention should go to Anglo-American, BMW, SASO, the IDC, and GIZ. I wish business and government delegations at this summit, as well as other community-based representatives, well, as we work together to shape Africa's green hydrogen agenda for the benefit of our economies and societies. And I also want to thank the presence of ministers and delegates from a number of countries right across the world and our continent. May you have a most fruitful and productive conference. Thank you very much. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President and Dr. Ramakgopa.
Can I go home now?
Yes, you can. Thank you, Mr. President and Dr. Ramakgopa, for the context that you've given us. We've been hearing since the morning about cooperation that supersedes both politics and borders, and the next event on the stage is a demonstration of that. It's a signing of a memorandum of understanding by the Eastern, Northern and Western Cape that's going to be moderated by DG in the Presidency, Pindile Baleni. Please may I ask them to make their way to the stage and their panelists as well. Thank you.
To His Excellency, the President of the Republic, President Ramaphosa in absentia, ministers present here with us, Minister Ramakgopa and Minister Alwendo from Namibia, Premier Winde, MECs, MEC Mvoko and MEC Forsleo, the Directors General, my colleagues who are here, captains of industry, executives of the private sector, in particular Sasol, Anglo, as well as BMW, our international partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. While international decarbonization is being driven by direct climate change and policy impacts, there exists opportunities to engage with new and sustainable value chains in order to domestically decarbonize and create new export products. Green hydrogen will play a significant role in the country's transition. It will establish South Africa as a future energy market, global trader, securing foreign direct investment, earning foreign income, and creating economic growth and development. Partnerships in the private and public sectors are key enablers to South Africa's green hydrogen economy. So today, we've got the Eastern, Northern and Western Cape provinces who will sign a memorandum of understanding to collaborate on developing the nascent green hydrogen industry in South Africa. And ladies and gentlemen, this cooperation is mandated in Chapter 3 of our Constitution that calls on us in government to ensure peace, national unity and indivisibility of the Republic, underlined by the principles that inform national security, economic unity, as well as national norms and standards. So this collaboration between the three capes aims to facilitate a coordinated approach to leverage the potential of green hydrogen in the region through this MOU, which highlights areas of cooperation, including the development of inter-provincial green hydrogen collaboration mechanisms that will be informed by the green hydrogen commercialization strategy, which is about to be approved at national after extensive consultation, the development of shared logistics infrastructure and manufacturing facilities, and the creation of shared marketing and funding portfolio to promote the South African green hydrogen initiatives, and the development of a shared program to enhance human capital and to create social awareness within the green hydrogen sector. These jointly identified areas of cooperation provide significant credibility to this important initiative. A rigorous evaluation framework will be instituted that will assist us in assessing and gauging the effectiveness of the outcomes of the initiatives and highlighting the areas of success, offering insights for continual improvement and strategic refinement. Ladies and gentlemen, the Southern African region's potential enabling of access to deep ports, ore bodies, or rail lines to transport ore will facilitate the production of hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives that can be exported and utilized for mineral processing, thereby interfacing with global value chains. This, in short, was what is outlined in the collaboration, and the collaboration in the MOU represents the strategic priorities aimed at advancing the green hydrogen sector. Collective action in these areas will harness the potential of green hydrogen, promote sustainable growth, and position South Africa as a leader in this emerging industry. Now, in the presence of the political principals, I hereby hand over to the Provincial Directors General to sign this groundbreaking memoranda of understanding. The three Capes, over to you, colleagues. To my right, that's where the signing is happening.
Okay, let's continue with our program. The next memorandum that's going to be signed is one of cooperation. It's with the private sector. We heard earlier on about the importance of the private sector and working with government, which is supposed to create an enabling environment. I'm going to please ask Priscilla Mabelane from Sasol to make her way to the stage, while Craig Miller from Anglo American, Peter van Binsberg from BMW make their way to the stage to sign their memorandum. Good morning. How are you? I'm sorry. Can I ask you, is it possible to take off your lanyard?
His Excellency, the President of South Africa, Mr. Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, Honorable Ministers of Electricity, South Africa, Minister of Mines and Energy, Namibia, Premier of the Western Cape. I still feel that anxiety in my stomach this morning. MECs of Economic Affairs, Northern Cape and Eastern Cape, members of various local and global government representatives and partners of South Africa, captains of industries around the globe, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's truly a pleasure and honor to have all of you here to witness a significant milestone in South Africa's journey of developing a sustainable and exclusive hydrogen mobility ecosystem. Before I start, I think it's appropriate that I extend SASOL's deepest appreciation to our partners, the IDC, represented by Joanne, who have been an anchor, a supporter, and also a sponsor of the industry. And we could not have achieved what we've achieved if she did not take a personal leadership and supported and guided us as an industry in this journey. Thank you, Joanne. It is also appropriate that I recognize Honorable Minister. I still struggle with it, because we've been on this journey with the presidency over the last 3 years with his team to shape, debate, and dialogue the enablement, but the potential, including the risks of not pivoting at scale and taking advantage of our opportunities. And Minister, thank you for your support. I think it's also important to recognize that today's event follows two high-profile developments in the green hydrogen technology in South Africa over the last 2 years or so. Firstly, the unveiling of Anglo-American Platinum's 510 new-gen prototype truck, which made history for being the world's largest hydrogen-powered mining hauling truck. And secondly, beginning of this month, Sasol, Toyota, and Air Product's first on-road demonstration of a proof of concept for hydrogen mobility ecosystem. In this era where climate imperatives and economic and social impacts are critical, it is also important that as ecosystem partners, we put our hands together, our minds together, and emerge and develop innovative solutions to take our country, our continent forward. As such, we believe as partners that hydrogen is one of the few pathways that will emerge, as particularly in the decarbonization of the hard-to-abate industries, as a key enablement for decarbonization. But at the same time, it's also a key enablement for reindustrialization. This morning, as we're talking with the Honorable Minister, we made it very clear that for South Africa to be successful, or the region to be successful, it is going to be important that we use this opportunity to re-industrialize our minerals and resources. The region is blessed with abundance of resources, as has already been spoken, particularly renewables, equally minerals, where there's PGMs, copper, etc. And it is our responsibilities that we leave a sustainable legacy in order to ensure that we create new industries and inclusive energy provision at affordable levels in a region that is experiencing energy poverty. So as partners, we do believe that the entire region is dependent significantly for economic mobility, for competitiveness, to connect the various corridors. Heavy-duty mobility and mobility as a whole is critical. As a result, today's partnership is a demonstration of few partners that have actually invested in enabling such an ecosystem for South Africa to be successful. Let me start first with Sasol. As you can understand, I have some sort of interest in marketing ourselves, and as a marketer, it's at the heart of what I do every day. So first of all, from a Sasol perspective, in line with our purpose of innovating for a better future, we have successfully commissioned a 3-megawatt solar farm at Sasolburg, which is one of the key industrialization hubs and clusters in the country that requires sustainable energy at scale for decarbonization. And that 3-megawatt farm currently produces 150 kg per day of green hydrogen. The senior vice president who was responsible for making this possible is with us today. In the near future, into 2024, we intend to enhance this and to produce 5,500 kilograms per day of green hydrogen that we can start to decarbonize and commercialize. But we are not new in hydrogen development. At Sasol, we have pioneered over 7 decades our Fischer-Tropsch technology, which utilizes green hydrogen as well as carbon sources. Our technology is agnostic to any feedstock, including hydrogen. We currently produce 2.4 million tons of gray hydrogen per year. And we do believe for us to create sustainable industries to pivot over time in a meaningful and human-centered manner, that we will continuously drive and monetize the resources of South Africa. And as such, our partners, BMW, comes with a different value proposition. Their commitment is to help us to build a hydrogen economy, industrialize it in South Africa, speaking on your behalf, in accelerating the production of the green hydrogen ecosystem. And as such, we do believe that their value proposition today, in what Craig will share later on, will show the art of possibilities. On the other hand, another company that has its rich participation in South Africa, Anglo-American Platinum's view in the mining sector is that we should make use of possibilities of green hydrogen development to accelerate and unlock the potential of the mining sector in ensuring that we can actually leverage fuel cells technology and expand our economic activities. So, as I now mention, these 3 companies, which basically demonstrate their commitment to the country and to the region, that also recognizes that the success of the green hydrogen economy is dependent on ecosystems, partnerships between the private sector, government, and our global partnership, is here today to highlight that it is possible. I know it is, as our father has always said, it always looks difficult or sounds difficult until it is done. And today is that moment where we're saying it is possible. However, we do recognize, Dr. Ramokgopa, that this journey will not be possible if government, with its partners globally, does not recognize the challenges, particularly the social imperatives that South Africa is facing and the region is facing from a social economic development. So we do believe that our partners that are here today, as you witness this momentum, as well as the time that we are in, that you'll collectively support developing markets and accelerating industrialization and unlocking value and making it possible again for our rural women, our youth that is unemployed, and so that we can leverage our minerals in a human-centered and deliberate manner. So as I conclude, I would like to call upon our partners, Craig, as well as Peter, to join me on stage as we sign a memorandum of cooperation. Oh, is at that table? No, I think it's there. Sorry. Yeah, to join me on stage as we sign a memorandum of cooperation. And for that memorandum of cooperation to be successful, our leaders here present will join us later for a photo shoot to commit to the regulations as well as the impetus, such as incentives, to make this successful. Thank you.
Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. You ready?
Yes, I can. Can we? Suppose we just send the first page. Thanks.
Okay. There's another one. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
There we go. Well done. We've got 2. Thank you.
I'll do one with you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Now we bring on the big guns.
7 men.
You will meet you at the river. I will meet you at the river. Uzongithola ngigqoke emlanjeni, this kind of sound. I will meet you at the river. I will meet you at the river. Uzongithola ngigqoke emlanjeni, this kind of sound. Uzongithola ngigqoke emlanjeni.
All right, the last part of the program for this morning is going to be a high-level panel. Masopa Moshweshwe is going to be moderating that. I'm going to ask him to make his way to the stage in order to introduce his panelists. They can make their way to the stage just before lunch. Thank you. Is there any way you can take this off? Is there any way you can take this off? If you could, it's fine. The lanyard.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Our next event before the lunch break is our high-level panel. If I could invite Minister Ramokgopa, Minister Alwindo, to make your way up. Yeah, in the middle there, thanks. Priscilla. Craig. Peter. And the DG for DSI, Dr. Mdracha. Will everybody see you behind the podium here, Priscilla?
I was trying to hide. Is there a chair there? Oh, I'll move this side.
Oh,
Okay.
no. Yeah. No, the optics looks terrible now.
I know.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone, for being with us this morning. Maybe if we can, has everybody got a microphone?
Yeah.
We'll get a roving mic from the back. Thank you. You'll share? Okay. Thanks, DG. Minister Ramokgopa, if I can start with you. Last week we had the Binational Commission led by our two presidents with Namibia. If you can just give us a sense of some of the key outcomes that came from that in the energy context, and then specifically with regards to green hydrogen.
Thank you very much. Yes, as you have indicated, so the Binational Commission really is a platform that brings together the two countries, in this instance, South Africa and Namibia, and is chaired by the respective presidents. And of course, we're exploiting cooperation and collaboration across a broad range of areas, from agriculture, trade, investment, and as you have mentioned, also the areas of energy. And this would have been preceded, for an example, in the energy space by a conversation between myself and Honorable Minister Alwindo, just having a concrete conversation around what are the opportunities that presents in the energy space. And of course, our interest is apparent to everyone, because our desire is to make sure that we are able to extinguish load shedding as quickly as possible. And that possibility of us exporting or importing, rather, energy from neighboring countries is made all possible by the fact that there's a grid that connects a lot of the countries on SADC, and therefore we're looking for any excess generation that might exist in any of the member countries that are connected through this grid. We had done that with Mozambique. When we went there, we were able to secure 100 megawatts immediately and 600 megawatts over a period of 6 months. So we're pursuing the same conversation with Namibia. And of course, we came to a determination that there are significant opportunities. There are major gas finds in Namibia, the Kudu project is very far advanced. So there's possibility of gas to power. And in that context, I think the Kudu project can generate about 840 megawatts. First phase will do 240, and then they are prepared to make the 600 available to South Africa. Of course, the rate at which they are able to exploit that opportunity is a function of the existence of a power purchase agreement. And of course, as being a major consumer of energy, it makes sense that the conversation should happen between the two of us. We are far advanced, and in fact, we have found each other, and NamPower, which is ESCOM equivalent in Namibia, is pursuing those conversations with ESCOM, but at a political level, I think we are agreed that that's a way to go. And I guess because gas is a step down from coal, from an emission perspective, I think it emits, it's cleaner by 50%, I mean, compared to coal. Or if you like, the reductions of the emissions could be up to 50%, because we see our progression towards a net zero path as a function of multiple fuel sources, including those that gives us a step down, and ultimately we are able to be clean or do carbon capture at some point. So on that score, we have found each other. And then we also had a conversation around green hydrogen, and I'm sure when the minister comes, he'll give you a sense of where Namibia is far advanced in the planning and exploitation of that energy carrier. They're already having conversation with potential off-takers. But I think our joint view is that there's value in coordinating our efforts. We see it as an opportunity for us to benefit from scale and aggregation. And I think that's where we are, and also the potential for shared infrastructure. For an example, the work that the MEC Force is doing in the Northern Cape, Bukubai, we think that it can be a shared infrastructure. And of course, it's a function of that conversation with Namibia. And they also see the construction of a pipeline, phase 1 going to Bukubai, phase 2 going to the Western Cape, and then phase 3 going into Gauteng. So the point I'm making is that it's a symbiotic relationship. So there's a find, there's a ready off-taker, and it also is consistent with our decarbonization agenda. We're able to find each other on that score. So what the principals were doing really is to cement that conversation. And we'll be signing an MOU, because the draft that existed did not take into account these opportunities that we have since, or not discovered, but essentially there's some degree of alignment on how we can jointly pursue them. And we have agreed, the principals, they gave us an instruction, expand the memorandum to include those opportunities, and then come back in 6 months. Not just signing the memorandum, but also giving us an indication on how far are you on the implementation of the elements of the memorandum, because we are really agreed on the what should constitute the clauses, and we are confident about that relationship. So really, this 6 goes a long way in just illustrating in the most concrete fashion what is possible. And I think working with Minister Aluendo, we have a common appreciation on working together and the ability of this relationship to really address the issues of the political economy of energy and making sure that we expand access.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Windo, people often think because of South Africa's size that we are leading the journey in green hydrogen, but in many ways we are learning from and catching up in terms of the immense strides that Namibia has made. Internally in terms of project development, but also internationally in terms of marketing the country and the region as a green hydrogen development hub. If you can maybe tell us a bit more about that and potentially the lessons that us and the rest of the continent can learn in terms of that journey.
Thank you very much, and let me thank Minister Ramaphosa for inviting us to be part of this summit. And also just to confirm that the collaboration that we have been having so far and the collaboration that we should continue to have is very, very important. In fact, if you listen to all the Green Hydrogen Summit or conferences I have attended, you always hear the word collaboration, collaborations. Whether it's collaboration between countries, whether it's collaboration between governments and private sector, it's important that we do collaborate instead of us competing, especially at this stage of us developing this industry. In fact, Minister, I would probably even want to ask you to consider, maybe instead of saying Green Hydrogen Summit South Africa, why don't we say Green Hydrogen Southern Africa, and the next time we host it in Windhoek? So that is something. This is something I think you should consider. As the minister have said, yes, we did have a binational commission that just took place last week. We have reiterated our collaboration efforts. He talks about the fact that we have a draft MOU that we need to sign, and we need to make sure that it's comprehensive enough to talk about all the energy element. That's true. But we also have agreed to say, while we are finalizing this MOU, there's nothing stopping us to already start to do things together. We are already doing things together already. We, for example, have agreed to say, in terms of the collaboration in the energy sector, we need to strengthen our backbones in the southern part of Namibia and in the northern part of South Africa, so at least we make it easy for evacuation of energy, and therefore we are busy already constructing those infrastructure that will be necessary for the two countries to continue to collaborate. So we are already doing things, not only waiting for the MOU to eventually be signed. With regard to our green hydrogen strategies, just to say, yes, we have launched our green hydrogen strategy in 2021. And that's a strategy that actually tells us how to do this. And in fact, when we started off doing this, we were talking about green hydrogen, but I think we have now started to realize that it's not only green hydrogen, it's not green hydrogen, it's about, in fact, we are now calling it synthetic fuels. Because there are other elements because of having green hydrogen, not only green hydrogen. So we're really talking about now an industry not only comprising of green hydrogen, but there are other products. And you can talk about ammonia, you can talk about kerosenes, you can talk about the fact that you can do this to produce green steel. So it's a comprehensive strategy that we have embarked upon. To make sure that we implement that strategy, we have also with the assistance of our development partners, global development partners, we have set up a special office to drive the implementation of that strategy. We call it the Implementation Office that reports into the Ministry of Mines and Energy. It's headed by our Green Hydrogen Commissioner, James Newpay. I think, James, you are here, so hopefully you may wish to also to talk to James. So we wanted to make sure that we fast-track the implementation of that strategy. And again, within that strategy, we also emphasize the collaboration that we need to have between the government and the private sector. There will be a number of things that we need to do to collaborate. For example, Minister, you can think of, we need to have standards that define what green hydrogen looks like. So we cannot afford to have different kind of standards, between regions or between countries. Even globally, you are likely to have countries that are more consuming, the other one are more producing countries. Even between the consuming countries and the producing countries, you need to have harmonized standards of what green hydrogen is. You need to have harmonized regulations, and therefore that collaboration continue to be like that. Also, just to say that we have been in a discussion also with Sasol where we also see some collaborations. Probably that is also under part of the subset of the overall collaboration that we are going to have with South Africa. Also to say, last year we have signed a feasibility implementation agreement with Hyphen. That's a company that actually working with us to develop green hydrogen. That was signed, and we are now working together to make sure that we clearly identify how we are going to build these assets. We are also busy readying ourselves to have a second RFP that we are going to do in Q1 of next year, and we are going to have a detailed announcement that we are going to make during the COP28. So we are making progress in terms of how we want to implement our green hydrogen strategy. But again, I would just want to say, yes, we do agree that we need to have that collaboration to make sure that we develop a corridor of green hydrogen industry, as you say, starting from Angola. In fact, in Namibia, people seem to think that we only have got one project, that is a Hyphen project. But we do have other private sector-led projects that also seeks to develop green hydrogen, where we are developing a valley of green hydrogen starting from the north, the Erongo region, and up to the northern region in the southern region. So it's a whole valley, and then we are also busy now developing a complete valley strategy, because the strategy that we might have now was probably mostly focusing on the southern part of the country. But now that we got the potential of resources everywhere else, we need to have a complete value feasibility done, so that at least by the time we go out on the RFP, we have got major opportunities that we can be harnessed. So again, that is where we are. We can do it together. And also for the potential investors, for you, it's good then also then to understand that when we talk about developing this, it's not only for Namibia or for South Africa, but we are trying to do this, I think, for the region as such, and therefore it can be a regional collaboration that we are going to have. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. With Dr. Ramokgopa having assumed the chairperson role of the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance last month, I think he can consider the Southern African Green Hydrogen Summit proposal positively, not to put him on the spot. DG Mjwaha, DSI has been leading the South African charge in green hydrogen since 2007. And there's been interesting developments from a research and innovation perspective that the department has been working on, as well as a recent visit to Japan with some interesting outcomes. Please, can you just share some information around that with us?
Yep, thanks very much. I hope you can hear me. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the minister, Dr. Blaine Nzimande, who was supposed to give these few remarks today. So I've been asked to stand in for him. So Minister Ramokgopa, I know I'm a spare wheel, but I'll do the best I can. So the first, as you said, facilitator, is that we've been in this journey of developing knowledge around hydrogen fuel cells since 2007. And we thought that having platinum group metals is great, but if you don't do something about them, you are not going to derive value. So we established 3 centers, one at the University of Cape Town in Mintech, to focus on catalysis and platinum catalyst and membranes that are at the heart of the hydrogen fuel cell. I'll come back and give you a sense of what they have achieved to date. And then the second one was to set up a competence center at the Northwest University and CSIR that focuses on the development of hydrogen infrastructure. After you've produced hydrogen, you need to compress it and need to carry it where you would like it to be used for mobility or industrial applications. And then the third one was a center established at UWC that is looking at generating knowledge for integrating components to actually produce products. So the first phase of these centers was just to develop and establish capabilities, and then the second phase was to demonstrate and validate technology, and the third phase was to commercialize South African innovations. So let me then, as a second point, give you a sense of some of the examples of the products and the IP that has been developed in these centers. The first is 8 platinum group-based catalysts that are being produced at a commercial scale, as well as fuel cells and electrolyzer MEAs. If you want to get a sense of what I'm talking about, when you get out of the room and turn right, you'll be able to meet staff from UCT and Mintech that have developed these catalysts, and you're welcome to have a chat with them. The second example is high-pressure metal hydride hydrogen storage material and compressors that are used in refueling stations for scooters and forklifts. And we have taken some of these and embedded them, for instance, in a forklift that was converted from a diesel forklift into a hydrogen fuel cell forklift. And we also have catalyst-coated membranes for electrolyzers, as well as electrolyzer stacks at 1 to 5 kilowatt for hydrogen production. So these are components that you, as I say, you can see as part of the IP portfolio of the knowledge that we have invested in. We also have, of course, a range of master's and postdoctoral students, you'll meet them outside, that have been involved in this work. And they also develop hydrogen and fuel cells. One is a fuel cell that was used to power a field hospital at one military hospital in Pretoria during COVID. So what are these centers going to do going forward? Their role now is to look at research development in hydrogen to bring down the platinum and iridium content by at least an order of magnitude to reduce the unit cost. As you know, the more material you put into the components of the hydrogen fuel cell, the more expensive, so we will be looking at that. Increase stack capacity and also increase the capability to produce these membrane electrode assembly. But then when we got to the phase of commercializing this IP, Cabinet approved in 2021 a Hydrogen Society roadmap for South Africa. You can have a look at this on the website and the purpose of this Hydrogen Society roadmap. What I'd like to focus attention on is one of the initiatives that were identified during the Hydrogen Society roadmap, which is a Platinum Valley, which will start in Durban and Richards Bay, along the N3 corridor to Gauteng, and then all the way into the mines in Polokwane. And the specific reason why I think we have identified this valley, because we see it as a very important place where you can consume some of the products that I have talked about. So we have a detailed plan of by 2024 to have 1 megawatt electrolyzer capacity that should be in place. We're looking at decarbonizing bus and trucks that move along that corridor. We are in discussion with Airports South Africa and Transnet around in putting fuel cells that would be in the valley, and of course with Anglo American around some of the material handling in the mines in Mogalakwena. We've quantified the number of jobs that could be created. And Minister Ramagopa, you said earlier on the numbers may not be important, but we hope that if we do this by 2050, we should be able to create almost 1.36 million TVET jobs and have approximately 11.4% of GDP. And then lastly, I just want to say that there's huge opportunity for partnership for investors in the room. And we're looking at how we can partner with you in testing and validation some of the technology through the field crisis in the valley and in other areas, further development and optimization of the technology, and helping us to develop supply chain that support the deployment of some of these technologies. And we have, of course, partnered with a number of countries. At the moment, South Africa is chairing the International Partnership for Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Economy, but we've also signed a number of memorandum of agreement for technology transfer with a number of countries around the world. So I'd like to stop there for now, and I'm more than happy to take questions, but I'm inviting everyone to a session tomorrow, but also just outside to see some of the products that I've been talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DG, and definitely we will be visiting the DSI stand to see some of these tangible outputs of this work and the IP that's been generated by the department. Priscilla, coming to you, you must have one of the most difficult jobs in the country. Sasol is 5% of our GDP. But equally one of our largest emitters behind Eskom. So the transition path that you must walk is a difficult one and one that requires multiple elements of support. If you could tell us a bit more about it and the role that you see green hydrogen playing in that transition.
Thanks, Masapa. Just to remind you that the last time you mentioned that we were the largest emitter, I got the alarm on one of the venues. So we looked at it as well. I think, first of all, thanks for the opportunity. So our decarbonization journey and pathway to 2050 is anchored on multiple pathways. But I think, first of all, it's a recognition that we are a customer-centric organization. So we need to be able to continuously innovate for a better world and provide customers with the solutions that they're looking for. At the heart of that, financial capability and sustainability is quite important. So we do see the cost of the sustainable solutions that we're looking at to be quite fundamental in the shift, and how the partnerships between intergovernmental partnerships, but as well as the partnerships between ourselves in the private sectors will enable that and accelerate that. Just to give an example, when you look at the stimulus that are being provided by the US, coupled with the Hydrogen Bank and the HE Global, which I'm a member of, we are starting to see some really opportunities where the learning curves are accelerating. The cost of green hydrogen is starting to reduce significantly from the $5+ per kilogram to between $3 to $4 per kilogram. And this is going to be quite critical. But at the same time, I think as a developing country and a company that is critical in the economy, we're worried about fragmentation. So we're quite encouraged to see that there is already a regional integration and collaboration, but we are also requesting that as we look at intergovernmental, particularly given some of the countries here, Japan, Europe countries such as Germany, Netherlands, Denmark, etc., that we also consider that as they are looking at, from their side, to decarbonize, but also to expand their supply options, that we have the right mechanisms that are integrated, not for one country, but for developing countries in Southern Africa. So for Sasol, that's going to be important, because otherwise we're going to have a challenge in terms of the economics. The second request that I want to highlight is that we have to then, as I said, it's customer-centric. We then have to incubate local demand. Our country is so much dependent on exports, whether it's agriculture, whether it's actually minerals that we need to continuously develop and export. All of those are dependent on the competitiveness. Now, as we start shifting into the future with the drive for sustainability and some of the mechanisms that are coming in, such as the cross-border mechanism adjustments, what does it mean for our economy to continuously develop and be competitive? So we have prioritized some of those hard-to-abate industries, and we're going to do it in a meaningful and a thoughtful way, taking into consideration the need to enable those customers. But I think our request again is to say, we need partners to be able to unlock that. So one opportunity of that is what we are starting now in the VAL with a number of partners that I've mentioned earlier on, but there are other partners such as ArcelorMittal that is in the steel industries are going to be facing similar challenges in terms of decarbonization. We already have some of our mining customers that are taking grey hydrogen from Sasolburg through a pipeline with our partners Air Products. So how do we support them in the incubation of that local demand? A third element for us that is very important is off-takes. We can't afford to have multiple off-takes all over. And I think as Dr. Ramokgopa mentioned, or the minister mentioned last night, that to enable the ecosystem to shift and the scale in terms of export is going to be important, but that export will also incubate the local demand. So to enable that, we have to have integrated mechanisms that allows that offtake. And another point that I want to mention is around the opportunities associated with skills development. We were created 7 decades ago, to beneficiate the minerals, which was predominantly coal. When you look at the Mpumalanga region, it's so much dependent on coal. So our thoughtful approach in how we do this is going to be important. And I always use our partnership in Mozambique as an example. 2 decades ago, we went to Mozambique, South African government, Sasol, and Mozambique government, with the state-owned entities. We incubated a gas market. We developed a pipeline at that particular stage to be able to sustain Secunda going forward. Green hydrogen provides us that. We produce tons of ammonia, methanol, synthetic fuels. So as we do that together with the governments, that regional integration and planning today for the next 2 decades is going to be equally important. But the inhibition for us to be competitive globally is cost of capital. So how do we then make sure that the DFIs continue to play a critical role? But to do that, we have to give it a social imperative to it as well. So last time when I went to France, and I was quite encouraged to see the partnership between Germany as well as France in terms of the development of industrialization in Normandy, where some of the complex electrolyzer components are produced in Germany, and some parts of that are then finalized in France. So how do we make sure that in South Africa we create those critical skills and jobs? And my request, because I'm passionate about Secunda, is that as we start to repurpose some of the assets, create new sustainable businesses, we put those regions that are going to be impacted at the heart of this transition as well, and we could create some of those beneficiations in Secunda. And then I think lastly, as a lighter note, I am passionate for youth and women development. You can just see on stage here, I was telling the minister earlier on, it is quite intimidating. You know I was gonna say that. We really cannot talk about decarbonization, commercial opportunities, without thinking about the social development goals. And those social development goals also talks about the people who have been at the back foot of economic development. A girl growing up in a rural areas and looking at what it actually takes to get where I am today, and knowing that millions of kids in our region are still subjected to that, and particularly women. So I do hope, the two ministers, that as we put policies for offtakes, for regulations, environmental, etc., at the heart of that, we think about the majority of our society, which is women, and ensure that they are also anchored and in the forefront of unlocking the value of this ecosystem. Thank you. You knew I was going to say that.
Craig, coming to you, Anglo American launched a key project last year in the mining track and the ecosystem that produces hydrogen to support it. What role do you see hydrogen playing in Anglo American's future? Is it one around potentially an alternative source of demand for PGMs? Or is it really around the opportunity to decarbonize your operations, or is it both?
Thanks very much, and good morning, everybody. Still just morning. To answer your question very briefly, it's certainly both. The green hydrogen economy for us is twofold. First of all, it's essential, I think globally, and we all recognize this, as part of addressing climate change and the impact that climate change has. The Premier Alan Windey spoke about it, what happens in the Western Cape a little bit earlier, but closer to home at our mining operations and the impact that climate change has on our communities. It's incredibly imperative for us to be able to address the impact of climate change, and green hydrogen is part of that solution. In addition to that, as you pointed out, hydrogen or green hydrogen is an important part of our market development to secure future demand for our PGMs or our platinum group metals. Currently, the bulk of PGMs are used in catalytic converters to reduce emissions from internal combustion engines. The shift to battery electric vehicles therefore poses a risk to my company, to our industry, and also to South Africa. Our country is home to the world's largest PGM resources. The local industry, the PGM industry, directly employs around 172,000 people, as Minister Ramokgopa commented earlier. It's therefore essential that the future demand for this incredible endowment that we have, both in South Africa and north of our borders, that we develop the green hydrogen and the green hydrogen opportunity and really monetize the benefits that we can realize from that as a PGM industry and as a company. So if you'll allow me just to explain why platinum is so special. When it's used in a fuel cell, platinum serves as a catalyst to generate electricity through a chemical reaction between hydrogen and oxygen. It's then used to power a fuel cell electric vehicle, which can be refueled in minutes and has a similar driving range to a petrol or a diesel car, which we all drive today. The added benefit of a fuel cell vehicle is it has zero emissions. So fuel cell electric vehicles capture just 10% of the global car market share. It could create around 5 million ounces of incremental PGM demand per year. This is a meaningful amount for the PGM industry, and as a result, for our country. And we're really optimistic when looking at that fuel cell electric vehicle space. In recent months, we're very pleased to see the OEMs increasingly warm to hydrogen solutions to achieve their net zero targets, with BMW launching its pilot iX5 fuel cell vehicle, Toyota announcing its fuel cell electric vehicle version of the Crown sedan, its first fuel cell model in a decade, and several other models being launched by Chinese OEMs, as well as, importantly, I think, recognizing the appetite around the Le Mans 24-hour race, announcing a hydrogen class from 2026. So we do believe that South Africa's potential from a socio-economic opportunities in having hydrogen produced from renewable sources and a countrywide supply infrastructure are vast. And we'll continue to work with governments, with our customers, industry partners, and other stakeholders, as we're demonstrating today, to really live our purpose, which is to reimagine mining to improve people's lives. And that's really the key component for us in terms of our participation here today. Thank you.
Peter, yours is an easy question, and it's when do I get the car keys, or should we talk about that during the break? You know, the role that hydrogen electric vehicles will play into the future, as Craig has said, we hope will be substantial. What do you think it will take to get consumers into hydrogen electric vehicles? And do you see it as a viable option against battery electric vehicles, or is it really aimed at trucks and buses? Do you really see it in the consumer market? Thanks.
Okay, thanks for that question, and still good morning. So good morning, everybody. It's a good question, and I think I just want to go back a little bit in history. In the mid-80s, BMW Group already started working with hydrogen as a fuel. At that stage, we were using it as a liquid fuel. We were powering an internal combustion engine with it. But we were a little bit before our time. We actually showed that vehicle. It was a 750 HL at the World Summit on Sustainable Development here in South Africa in 2002. And that was 21 years ago. There wasn't a hydrogen summit. There just wasn't that much interest in it. But at that stage, it wasn't really a practical solution because liquid hydrogen had to be stored at very cold temperatures under high pressure. The fuel tank was immense and complex, and the fueling technology to refuel the vehicle was just not realistic. Fast forward now 21 years later, and we've seen some amazing developments. I mean, the fuel cell technology that we have today is powerful enough and small enough to power a passenger car, not just trucks and buses. In fact, the fuel cell in the iX5 hydrogen outside is the most powerful fuel cell shown in any car today. So we're amongst BMW's traditional values there. And it's because it's fueled with gaseous hydrogen, a lot of the problems go away that we had before. The tank can be much smaller and less complex. And I think all the innovations you've told us about have closed the gap around storage, transportation, and refueling infrastructure. So I think we've come a long way to now offer customers a real viable alternative to the internal combustion engine or the battery electric vehicle. And I think if we're serious about zero-emission driving, just like Alan Winder said, we need more than one zero-emission alternative. It can't just be the battery electric vehicle because it doesn't meet the needs of the consumers, of every consumer or every region of this world. And so we believe at BMW that the fuel cell electric vehicle is a very viable alternative to the battery electric vehicle or internal combustion engines. Of course, to get the fueling infrastructure going, we really welcome if the logistics world, so the trucking and busing industry, gets onto that because that will help speed up the infrastructure development. But I believe with a vehicle like the one outside that you can fill up in 3 to 4 minutes, so under 5 minutes, and then do 500 kilometers emission-free, we'll have plenty of customers really interested in that technology. And so I think, just like all of us in this room, I think we believe that the era of hydrogen is dawning. And with the fuel cell electric vehicle, we have the automotive solution to capitalize on that. Thank you.
Minister Ramokgopa, maybe as we start to close the panel, what do you see as some of the next steps in terms of our collaboration with Namibia and some of the work that you'd want to do as the chair of the Green Hydrogen Alliance on the rest of the continent?
Maybe just to make 1 or 2 points riding on the comments that were made by Priscilla earlier on, because I think the issues she's raising can't be understated or overemphasized on the need for us to have a broader conversation on the social elements of these interventions. The fact that there's no, if you like, significant representation of women in the sector, and also young people almost are absent in the conversation. So we have taken that to heart, and one of the things that we've been doing, starting with the inaugural Green Hydrogen Conference, on the sidelines of that, we'll have a Women in Green Hydrogen. And the work that we've been doing as a build-up to this Green Hydrogen Conference, we have really placed a significant amount of focus on the participation of women, just the gender dimensions of the conversation. So I'm just saying that we are deliberate. And in the course of that, what we have sought to do was when we convened this forum is to bring some of the most iconic women who are in this space and really outside the public sector. Those who have done it before, they continue to struggle. They can share testimonies about their struggle and how they rose. And Priscilla would have been one of those iconic figures. Miss Ipileng Silele would have been one of those figures. Miss Connie Dilel is one of those figures. So the point I'm making is that there's a cohort of women who are trailblazers, who are part of the conversation, and they see their duty as exercising their agency and galvanizing that sector of society. Because my view is that it will be condescending for males to think that they can think on behalf of women on what is in their interest. I think what we'll do is to support the efforts of women when they exercise their agency, but as policymakers, we have a duty to ensure that the monopoly we have over policy determination is such that it promotes inclusivity. But I must make the point, it starts with women. Priscilla, Ipileng, Connie have a duty to ensure that they promote, and then they put pressure on us. Not that we require that amount of pressure, we're converted, but I'm just saying that it's a powerful message when people stand in front of you and you see yourself in those people. Then it's doable. And that's why Priscilla, Ipileng, and Connie must do it, and will continue to support them. And that's why I said I can. They said the minister must be a keynote speaker at a breakfast of women in hydrogen. I say no, but you are negating the message you are trying to. I can be in the audience to hear the criticism, and also the counsel by women to say the state must do the following. I'll sit there, enjoy it, and then come back and respond. But it's there you must take the lead. I think that's the point. Maybe going to the point you have raised is that, so the first thing as Minister Luenda has indicated, I think you need to build the transmission infrastructure. We have done the numbers. We need upwards of 250 billion rands for us to strengthen the infrastructure, transmission infrastructure, expand it and modernize it. Just inside the country, we need about 14,000 kilometers of new lines in the next 10 years to accommodate new sources of generation, especially our renewable sources, because they are located in areas where grid capacity is exhausted. The Cape provinces, they don't have grid capacity, all of them. And therefore, our ability to connect green, if you like, sources of generation is undermined as a result of that. And the same is the case when you go to Namibia, but as the minister has indicated, we're building a 404 kV line, so they are building it up to the border, will connect to the border, so that we're able to take advantage of this. So we're getting to a point where we are project specific. So the generalities about, if you like, political statements, declarations, what is very nice and colorful in the public domain, we're signing, and then there's the granularity, the granular details around exactly what is it that we're doing. And part of that work will require that we tap into the liquidity of the private sector. The ESCOM balance sheet is a compromise. Everyone knows about that as a result of legacy issues. Even with the 254 billion rand fiscal injection, it's still not sufficient. I mean, of course, it does help because we can do some degree of maintenance, but you still need to expand these lines. And then we need to work with the private sector. That's why we occasion a seminar on financing on the grid. Of course, co-sponsored with the JSE, because they're an important intermediary and interlocutor. They understand the financing space better. They've got credibility. So when they are part of the conversation, it lends credence to what we say. And the private sector came to the party and said the money is there. So you're not sitting with the money problem, as the president was saying. It's just configuring that instrument so that you protect private sector interest, you protect the public sector interest. We had also peer countries, Brazil, Chile, Peru, they've walked this road before, they've done it, so we'll benefit from last mover advantage. So the most immediate thing is to do that. So you can have the Kuru gas to power. If there's no transmission line, you can't evacuate the electrons. I think it's important that we get to the level where
It's just projects. We see how best we finance. My view is that, that we can have an inordinate amount of conversation. The point is to start. It's very powerful. Just starting and accepting that you are going to make mistakes. Of course, you are going to ensure that you avoid, but you are likely going to make mistakes. I always make the point that those who make mistakes are those that do. If you fold your arms, you are 100% sure there will not be any mistake other than the mistake of folding your arms. So it's important that we do something to get this going. And I think with the minister, we are at that level. Let's just get things done. So when you ask us this conversation, whether the conference is in Windhoek or somewhere, we must say the last time we were in South Africa, we said the following: we are building this line, we can evacuate so many megawatts. I think for me it's a very powerful statement. The private sector does it very well. So Peter just said it. I didn't know what they were doing until they show you the vehicle. So less on speak, but more on action. We balance each other nicely. I mean, we must speak and say something, and then they will come and act. But I'm sure when you see, if you like, a prototype, I'm not sure if it's a prototype, but something real that is tangible, then people can relate to it. And I think it's important. Doing is a science. And I think government is short, across, not us, as a self-criticism. I think we have not perfected the art of doing. So that's why we must do. Like I always tell you, I think engineers, we just do. And then we'll continue doing. And I'm happy that in a partner like Namibia, and more specifically, Minister Luendo, we share the same values. Let's start. And then there's credibility to what we are doing. Thanks.
Very good.
Minister Luendo, I'll leave the last message to yourself. A lot of people are not aware that the Hyphen project, one of your flagship projects, is only 20 kilometers as the crow flies across the Orange River from the Buchubai project. Priscilla will be happy on stage talking collaboration because she's been from the beginning advocating for more regional cooperation. Namibia has fantastic wind resources. We have advanced elements of infrastructure in terms of port infrastructure. So that element of cooperation on infrastructure development that advances these projects is a very important component. In terms of the way forward, what would you like to see in terms of collaboration between some of these flagship projects, and how can we cement that going forward?
Thank you. Just to agree with Minister Ramaphosa to say, yes, let's do, and let's show that it actually been doable, because if we have conferences and conferences after another one, and then we don't actually say to the people what we have achieved after the previous conference, people start maybe to think, is this for real, or maybe it's just people are talking. One of the things I think we have learned in this process as Namibia, it's to take the people along, for people to really understand what it is we are doing, and why, and what does it mean to the communities. It's very, very important, not only because people must know, but this is also a new thing, not only for many of us, it's very new. Imagine now the communities, they hear about green hydrogen and what it means to them. Some people means that, it's only going to be for some people, it's going to displace their jobs, and therefore that community consultation is very, very important. And with the leadership of our president, he have made sure that we went to all the regions, especially the regions where these assets are going to be built, to ensure that the people understand and what their role will be or is currently already within those. It's very, very important that you continue to do that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that in my view, I seem to think that maybe we might have talked enough on the supply side of this. We talk about the technology involvement, we talk about where this asset can be built, the resources there, and we can do all this. And I'm not so sure whether we have spent equal amount of time to think about the demand side of things, the market part of it. How are we developing the markets? The financing part of it. I know we do talk about it, but I'm just having a feeling that maybe we're not spending equal amount of time to make sure that the supply side or the demand side and supply side, equally we have got a solution for both. Especially, I think, on the financing part of it and the role of the DFIs and the role of the nationals and what they can do. So in our conversation, I hope we continue also to focus on those issues. Lastly, I think I probably also omitted to mention the fact that when we talk about the EVs, we have also started to talk about this with the Anglo-Americans, because we also in Namibia have got the existence of some of the minerals that will be required for EVs, and therefore we have got that conversation to see how can we again collaborate with Anglo-American to make sure that we harness those resources. So it's just to close off to say we are excited, we are making progress, but we need to prove to the people that this is doable, and because we can prove that tangibly this has been done, this has been achieved. And again, to just emphasize the collaboration we need with the private sector partners. And so far, I actually have not seen better collaboration with public sector, especially in Namibia, when it comes to green hydrogen. We have got this understanding to say it can only happen if the two, the private sector, the public sector, plus the community, if we can both actually understand what it is we are doing and also understand and appreciate our respective roles, things will work out better. And we continue to do that. And Minister, I look forward to the Green Hydrogen Summit, Southern Africa. That is going to be held in Windhoek next year. So thank you very much for that.
Sadly, we've exhausted our time for today. Just a thank you to everyone on the panel, ministers, DG. As DG has said to everyone, there will be a specific panel curated by Department of Science and Innovation. They've done some very interesting things around carbon capture technology that we didn't get to touch on today, and encourage many of you to please attend and join that. And congratulations to the EVP of Sasol Energy and the CEO of Anglo-American and BMW on your memorandum of cooperation. It really does show this element of a tangible advancement since last year, and shows the private sector's commitment to the development of this nascent green hydrogen sector. I thank you.
Please may I ask that we remain in the room. The panelists that were on the stage are going to make their way out for a photo session and take a look at that vehicle. Please may I ask for your patience just for the next 5 minutes or so while that happens, and then we can go. Just a reminder of the house rules from a little bit earlier on. One, if you want the Wi-Fi, it's Century City Conference, and the password is SAGHS, all in caps. Please may I ask that we remain in the room if we're not on stage. Please may you remain in the conference room for the next 5 minutes, as they need to do something outside. Thank you again to Siemens Energy who are hosting the lunch and networking proceedings. And please may I make an announcement about your registration. If you haven't registered and you don't have a badge, please make sure to get one from the accreditation center, especially if you didn't register this morning. Tomorrow you won't be able to access any of the venues without that. And my final request, please, for those leaving, is that you remain seated for the next 5 minutes as they make their way out, and then afterwards we can go for lunch. Thank you. I'll see you after that. If there are any members of the media in the room, please follow the delegation out. Everybody else, we've got another 4 minutes together and then we can make our way out of the room. Really appreciate your patience on this. Thank you.